Hey guys, welcome back to the Outfitter Connection podcast. I'm your host, Austin Presley, and I'm here with an awesome dude this week, Mr. Mike Kendall. How are you this morning?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Mike is a avid waterfowl guy, and more so snow goose.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. If you don't
I
mind,
do all things waterfowl, and I hunt turkeys, and I hunt whitetails, but snow geese get us where we need to be, right?
absolutely. If you don't mind, Mike, kind of give the listeners a rundown of who you are, what you do, and how this all started.
So my name's Mike Kendall. I'm from Southeast Michigan, about 35 minutes south and west of Ann Arbor. A little bitty town here. Been duck hunting for 35 years now. Found snow geese in 2010. A buddy of mine who lives down in Kansas. We used to work together up here. And when 2009 happened and everybody lost their jobs, he moved back home to Kansas to find work there, and called me that fall and said, "Hey man, we're both waterfowl guys. I think we've got to check out this snow goose thing." So we booked a 2-day hunt for the weekend. And the first spin that we were under was about 5,000 birds. 1,000 of them gave it up first pass, and I looked at him, and I looked at the outfitter, and I said, "I don't care what it takes. I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. This is awesome." So, yeah, we hired a guide for a handful of years, trying to get familiar with things and figure out as much as we could about it. And then I bought my own spread in the fall of 2015, and we've basically just been freelancing since 2016 in the Northwest Missouri area. I've also hunted South Dakota. I hunted Illinois a couple of years ago. But Northwest Missouri seems to be our spot. Pretty familiar with the ground down there now. So it's nice to be able to wander around and find them, and then gain access to hunt them. And you know, the hard part for us is that we only get to do it for about 7 or 8 days of spring because of jobs and life and the such. So Flipping Birds Apparel Company came about as the result of just a couple of guys sitting around having some sodas after a weekend of hunting and brainstorming a little bit about how could we make just a little bit of money to hunt these things a few more days a year while we put a brand on some apparel that other snow goose hunters could wear, so that when you see them out in public, you're like, "Oh, hey, that guy's as messed up as I am. He's wound up about these things as I am." So that's cool. Everything I do, because I'm a business guy through and through, everything I do is about building connections and the such. And that's really what this has become, because I haven't yet given it the attention that it deserves, in terms of marketing it and pushing the product and so on and so forth. And building an apparel company per se is very hard, because everybody's got their favorite hoodie, everybody's got their favorite t-shirt, their favorite hat, their favorite this and that. So we're more of a brand than we are really an apparel company. I just want other snow goose hunters to appreciate the thought that I've put into the apparel that we sell. All of our t-shirts are a tri-blend cotton, because the last thing I want when I put a t-shirt over my head is for it to feel like I'm just put on a cardboard box. So all of our t-shirts are a tri-blend cotton, super soft. Our hoodies are all fleece lined, mid-weight. So they're, again, a tri-blend cotton, super soft and fleece lined, super comfortable. I'm a big hat guy, so I design all the hats that I have made, from the leather patch when I'm wearing to some of the other ones that we have out there. And it's just about getting it out there to people if we can, but like I said, I've not given it the attention that it deserves yet for it to be much, but I love doing podcasts and stuff like this to kind of get the word out there that we are out there. One of the big things for me when I was putting this adventure together was that everything was affordable for the common guy, right? I don't want to spend $60 on a hooded sweatshirt that's white to go down there and lay in the middle of a muddy field and ruin it in a week, and then throw it in a tote and forget that I even have it, right? So, you know, I make a little bit of nothing on the products that we sell, but that's okay. It's more about making a few dollars for me and having my stuff on people's backs or on their head if it's a hat, or just building the connections with outfitters, with people who are also waterfowl hunters, with guys and gals that know what snow goose hunting is, and know what it offers you. So yeah, I mean, that's just kind of where we're at. We are currently prototyping a decoy for the snow goose hunting industry. That has been a long and laborious process. Just trying to figure out what materials are going to be durable enough to work in a manner that I would be comfortable releasing to the public. But we're right on the edge. We've almost got it finished. I'm super excited to be able to talk about that. Can't do it yet, but I'm super excited to be able to talk about that when we do get it finished. I think it's going to be something that makes a difference in people's spreads in terms of enticing those birds to come down into shooting range for us. So yeah, just kind of excited. I mean, I'm kind of excited. I'm super excited about the possibilities of getting that thing finished, dotting all the I's, crossing all the T's, and getting that released to the general public here in the next couple of months. We'll have it ready prior to the fall season for sure.
That'll be awesome. And it's,
Mm-hmm.
you see a lot of decoys that they're on shelves, and it's like, oh yeah, it looks like it, but it doesn't have that realistic feature to it that is going to get those shy birds to commit. And that's because if you're hunting them in Missouri, they've been shot at all the way from Saskatchewan all the way down, and even
Yeah,
further.
so snow geese get hunted 10 months out of the year, because you're absolutely right. They go from their breeding grounds that is the tundra north of Saskatchewan or the boreal forest in Alaska, and they get hunted all the way down to the Gulf where they winter. And then we have the spring conservation order, which makes sure that they get hunted all the way up to their breeding grounds in spring as well. So there are guys out there that are shooting birds with bands on them that are in excess of 10 to 15 to 20 years old. I think the oldest snow goose band is like 27 or 29 years old, and was banded in Russia. You know what I mean? It's
smokes.
Yeah. Just insane. It's insane what these birds see. And you think about like the leading edge adults that everybody talks about in the spring, and how weary they are and how much they've seen and how many of the same spread they've seen, that where they know that, like, no, those aren't our buddies. That's just somebody else going to shoot at us. So there's a little bit of that, and there's a need to be different in terms of especially the spring conservation order, right? So you can't just go buy 1,500 decoys and set them out in whatever pattern you want to send them out, throw up a couple of flyer decoys or a rotary machine and call it good, because they've seen that a million times and they know better, right? Are you going to fool some of them some of the time? Yeah, but the guys who do it consistently, have just a little bit something different in their spread that they may or may not have seen before that makes them want to come down and have a look.
Yeah, it's in all forms of waterfowl, it's all about tricking those educated birds, because if you can get them to commit, you can get the whole line to drop in. And this is coming from somebody that's only waterfowl hunted for 2 years and not even hard at it. It's a time filler for me whenever I don't have another hunt going on, and something I enjoy. Like, I don't ever plan on guiding waterfowl, just because I believe there's a couple things that every guide should do just for themselves.
Right.
And waterfowl's one of those for me.
Yeah, and I think I have people ask me all the time, "Hey, do you guide?" And I say no, but I will absolutely invite people every single year that I go down there, because I want every single waterfowl hunter, whitetail hunter, turkey hunter, squirrel hunter. I want every hunter to experience what these snow geese and hunting them is like, right? It's absolutely impossible to describe to people what 1.2 million birds in the same place might look like. But every year when we go down to Missouri, Los Bluffs National Wildlife Refuge has very close to a million or in excess of a million birds on the refuge when we're down there. And it's one of the things that we do and very purposefully make time to do every spring, is take a trip over to the refuge and drive the auto route around all of the pools and just watch the birds come back in, because it's absolutely impossible to describe. And it is everything that I think of when I think about the pure madness that is Mother Nature, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to know that we have that availability to hunt these birds in the masses is it's very important for me to introduce as many people to it as I can.
Absolutely.
And I've got all the stuff, right? Like, the only thing I ask of the guys that I invite is that if you're coming down, get your own hotel room and help us with gas, buy some food, and then away we go. Because we don't lease fields. Those farmers down there are very receptive to you hunting their fields without paying them to do so. We've been maybe luckier than most in that aspect, that we have thousands of acres that we have access to based on meeting one farmer down there in the spring of 2016. So it's been good, man. It's been a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think is the key component to picking up land? Because you hear more stories nowadays of like, hell no, you can't hunt that field. I don't want anybody in that field. I don't want anybody near those fields. Where 10, 15 years ago, it was a lot easier to obtain information, or not information, but permission from landowners. And nowadays, like I said, it's like, hell no, get off my front porch. I don't even want to talk to
Right.
you. What does
Right.
it look like? If you could give this piece of advice to people that are listening, how should you approach a landowner? Things you shouldn't wear, and kind of how do you kick those conversations off?
So for me here in Michigan, it's incredibly tough to get permission. You and I were talking for just a hot second before we jumped on that. Most of the time up here, I don't even get the question out of my mouth before they say, "Look, just no, you're not going to hunt this property. Get off. You go play in the road. Get out of here." And I'm a real estate broker up here in Michigan. That's my real job. And 9 times out of 10, I'm in my work attire when I get on the Onyx app and I figure out who owns this piece of land. And then I go knock on their door. I immediately hand them a business card so they know that I am who I say I am. And I say, "Hey, look, I don't mean to bother you. I'm a waterfowl hunter. I just noticed that there are some Canadas in your field over there. I was hoping that a couple of us could hunt those if you would be willing to allow us to do that." Up here doesn't work at all. Down there, same process, right? I mean, I'm not in my business attire, but I'm in, comfortable casual clothes. I get out slowly because everybody's got a dog down there, and I try to introduce myself to the dog, and before you know it, here comes the landowner. I reach out and I shake everybody's hand and I introduce myself immediately, and I also hand them a business card down there so they know that I am who I am, and they see that I'm a business professional. So here we go. This particular spring, for instance, we found a feed went to the landowner's home. She comes out. We introduce ourselves and we talk to her about the piece of property we were looking to hunt. She was like, well, I don't know. And I said, well, ordinarily we're down the street 10 or 15 miles. And she says, oh my goodness, whose farm do you hunt down there? And I told her the farmer's name. And she said, oh my goodness, if you hunt down there with him, you're good to go here. You guys go ahead. And I said, don't worry, we're not going to drive in the field unless it's absolutely dry. We're going to pick up all of our shell casings. We're going to make sure to take care of the land as though it was our own. We're going to leave it how we found it. And then what we did down there was went to the neighbor as well, introduced ourselves and said, hey, farmer down the street gave us permission to hunt in the field. We're going to be here all week. Very respectful. We just wanted you to know that we had permission and introduce ourselves. Because again, for me, it's about building connections, because you never know if those birds are going to be there again in 2 years when that field's corn again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because up there they do rotate crop out.
Yes.
It might be beans, it might be soy, it might be corn, wheat,
right.
And then for a couple of years, and then they'll swap it over.
Yep. So down there, it's just, they just want to hear that you're going to take care of their land. That's it. Yep. And I have found that dropping my farmer's name down there has gotten me access to hundreds of acres that I might not have otherwise gotten because of his reputation in the community.
Right. And it's important that people understand that you don't just go out of state to a place and go get permission on one place and you think you're in on everybody's place. You've got to build that rapport, not only with your farmer or your landowner, but also the community.
Well, and I think some of the problem is that exact scenario that you're talking about, right? We had a humongous feed just to the west of us down there this year. And I went and knocked on that lady's door. We were going to pull the spread and move to that field. And I went and knocked on her door and she says, she said, I'd love to let you, but we just love those white birds down here. We love watching all of them in our field. And I'm talking 75,000 or more in this field. It was a humongous feed. And when I was getting ready to leave, she said, but I really appreciate you not just setting up in the field. I appreciate you asking permission versus just showing up in the field and making me get somebody to kick you out of the field. Thank you very much for not just doing that. And it's hard to even think about someone doing that. But the reason she said that is clearly because someone has done that before. And I think you hear stories of guys finding birds in a field and then parking their truck and blazing away and then running into the field and grabbing as many of them as they can, throwing them in the back of the truck and then driving off. Like, all those things contribute to how tough it is to get permission. Here in Michigan, everybody thinks they're going to get sued should something silly happen, like somebody get hurt on these people's property. They think you're going to sue them. There are lots and lots and lots of times, especially here in Michigan, where I take a hold harmless form with me and say, look, here's a hold harmless form. You don't have to worry about that, because if I do something stupid on your property and hurt myself, that's because I'm an idiot, not because it's your fault. Right. Sometimes it works. Most times they say, you know what, we're cool here. Just go away.
Yeah. And it's what type of shells do you use for snow goose? Like, I've got my preference, and then I know everybody's got like their own preference for shot and sizes and everything like that.
Right. So snow geese don't have an ounce of fat on them. They estimate that they burn 30,000 calories a day when they're migrating. They don't have an ounce of fat on them. So it's, in my opinion, it is easier to kill a snow goose at 40 yards than it is a mallard at 40 yards. So sorry, obviously work is busy this morning. So for me, my favorite shot size is number 3s. I use number 2s or number 3s. I loved the Remington Hypersonic when sorry.
You're okay.
So I loved it when Remington made the hypersonic. I loved buying that in number threes and shooting both ducks and snows with that. I tried some Black Cloud over the last couple of years, but everybody knows that's a real dirty load. And the dust and everything that is Northwest Missouri is hard on your gun already. So I was actually on another podcast with some guys that are local here that are call makers a month and a half ago or so, maybe a month ago. And we were on with the guys from Migra Ammunition.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I hopped on their website and bought a couple of cases of the number 2, number 3 mix from them to take down there and try out this year. And that stuff is naughty. That I think I found a new favorite shell because that stuff is naughty. Real nice, just real nice. And the knockdown power that stuff has, even at 45, 50, 60 yards, is hard to describe. It's a really, really good shell.
Yeah. I like running Boss 3.5 split, that copper plated bismuth.
Sure.
It hits like a freight train. I've used it for Lake Erie divers. I've used it for Canada's. I've used it for Sandhill Crane in West Texas. That load, man, I folded a buffle head, I don't know, 50 yards and just absolutely pillowcased him on Lake Erie last year.
Right.
Like my first diver duck hunt ever. And I was like, holy smokes. And it became it was a confidence builder shell for me because I was shooting Winchester because that was only the second ever waterfowl hunt I've ever done was last November.
Right.
And holy crap, that Boss 3.5, it is it's some good stuff. It's expensive for listeners that don't know. It is high dollar, and you're getting what, 25 shells less per case?
Yes, because they're 20 per box versus 25.
Yep. And
so you're getting 50 less per case.
50 less per case. That's what it is. And it's you're paying more, you're getting less shells. But I also found that I'm not pumping 2 or 3 more at a bird whenever I connect. You know, it's when it hits, it hits.
And that was what I found with the Migra down there this spring. I was insanely impressed with like how dead these snow geese were. Right. They were dead. Yeah.
They weren't hitting the ground flopping or standing. They just
no, they were dead. They were dead. Yep.
I love it, man.
Yeah, it was good stuff, man. It was just one of those things where I had a couple of different buddies in the outdoor industry and the waterfowl industry very specifically say, hey man, you gotta check out this stuff from Migra. These guys, I mean, this is a hard hitting shell. And I had never found anything. So for me, it was about once I started to shoot those Remington hypersonics, they were very much the same, where when you shot something, it was dead. Yeah. So it's been a couple 3 years of holding on to the hypersonic that I have for very special occasions, and then trying to find something that was equal or close to equal to it in terms of just sheer knockdown power. And that I was very impressed with that Migra ammunition down there this spring.
Yes, sir. Yeah, and I know several people that shoot Migra and they absolutely love it. And it's one of those things, like everybody's got their preference, right? So some people like Realtree Max 3 camo, some people like Sitka Marsh. It all comes down to a comfortability and a confidence thing. If you're confident in your gear, your gun, your ammo, you're just gonna do a little better.
Right. And it's like you said with the bufflehead story, right? Like it's when you know that you have that confidence, all of a sudden your mindset shifts a bit and you're like, man, maybe I wouldn't have ordinarily taken that shot, but I've done it before. So like, let's go get it.
Yep. Going back to Flipping Birds Apparel, and you started this just because it's you started it out of kind of a love child for snow geese, and you wanted people to wear some snow geese gear. Because you're right, there are snow geese hoodies and things like that that are out that are $50, $60 a piece.
Right.
You know, and if, like you said, if you're laying out there in the mud, you're going to get a couple days out of that hoodie versus several months down the road with it. What,
Right.
with that in mind, like, do you do your own screen printing and stuff in house? Do you guys outsource your screen printing, or is it?
I outsource it. I've been, again, relationship building, right? So I've got guys that are in different industries, but also own their own companies that have different sort of apparel printed up and hats made and such. And I've managed to make some connections there that are good. The trouble for me is that some of these suppliers that are going to screen print the stuff for you have minimum orders, right? So like I have one hat guy who I would love to use more, but his minimum order is 12 dozen hats, 144 hats. So it's a lot. And what if you have, so like my initial order with him was 12 dozen hats with 19 different hats in that 12 dozen, right? And what if you have one or two or three of those hats that don't sell as well as the other ones? Now you're stuck with 5 dozen hats that are like, what am I going to do with these?
Yeah.
Right.
And I find that the tricky side of also owning an apparel company.
It is.
We had a design that we thought was really going to take off and do well. It was something that you don't see every day. It's a coyote it's a coyote with a thermal monocular, and then he's got a thermal scope on.
Oh,
tactical
nice.
AR, and it says smoke a pack a day on the back. And then on the front, it's got like the old Lucky Strike cigarette box.
Nice.
With 223 rounds in it. We're like, oh man, this is going to sell great. Shit, I'm sitting on, I don't know, 30 or 40 shirts that just we've sold.
Sure.
We've sold 4, and it's like, oh shit.
Sure. And because I didn't want to get too crazy with stuff, ours are mostly just logo stuff, like hoodies and t-shirts, and I've got some long sleeve camouflage lightweight t-shirts, because I didn't want to get too crazy right out of the gate. Everything's just got the logo on the left chest and then a big logo on the back, right?
Yeah.
Well, their minimum order is 4 dozen for a t-shirt, right? So if I want a gray t-shirt, I got to buy 4 dozen of them. If I want a brown one, I got to buy 4 dozen of those. An olive green one, 4 dozen. Black, 4 dozen. White, 4 dozen, right? I'm sitting on $6,000 or $8,000 worth of merchandise between hats and t-shirts and hoodies and short sleeve t-shirts that, like, unless I'm going to a show, right? Because I've got a website, but it's garbage. And I just have to connect with a website developer to help me kind of fine tune that and make that what it needs to be. But it's all about time, right? Like the idea that this was going to be a side hustle, I didn't realize, I guess, would create a scenario where it's as much a full-time job as it is a side hustle. And if I'm going to take an entire weekend to go to a show, that's an entire weekend. I'm not trying to help somebody buy or sell a home, right? So there are a lot of things that go into it. And for me, it was about building a brand and a logo that was recognizable. I got incredibly lucky that I have a good friend who's an insanely talented graphic artist. And I was able to get what was in here out and into his brain. And it is the logo that I have right now, you know. Pretty consistent theme with that is everywhere I go, people go, man, that's one of the sweetest logos I've ever seen. I'm like, cool. All of my hats are $25. My t-shirts are $20. My hoodies are $40, right? First Snow Goose hoodie I ever bought, I paid $65 for and ruined it in 2 days, right? So part of what I tried to do when I put this thing together was buy items that are quality items, but are also affordable. Right.
What for listeners that they may have an idea, kind of like, whether it's in the waterfowl world or the big game world, the turkey world, the fishing world, if you're going to build a logo and build a brand, what's like the first 5 steps that you need to recognize of like, if this is going to work, I have to do XYZ?
So for me, when I thought about it, it was, I have to have a logo that's going to stand out. And the people that hunt snow geese are going to know that it's a snow goose, right? So I had to have a logo that stood out. I had to have a name that was catchy. I have to have quality apparel, and it has to be affordable, period. And then I have to market it appropriately, where I'm a business guy, but marketing is super weak for me, right? So I've tried to do it mostly via social media. I've got an Instagram account. I've got a Facebook page that I don't even use anymore. I've fought against creating a TikTok account, but I have finally created a TikTok account. It is not for the apparel company. Maybe that's coming. Maybe it's not, with all the uncertainty in the realm of that. But do I have time to post 5, 6, 7 times a day? Probably. Do people want to see me ramming my apparel company down their throat 5, 6, 7 times a day? I don't know. Right. And like I said, I snow goose hunt 7 to 10 days of spring. I do it in the fall, and I like to share different adventures that I have in the fall between deer hunting and waterfowl hunting up here. We go to Kansas every year with an outfitter buddy of mine and hunt down there and just beat the brakes off of them in January, because again, you're in between the end of duck season up here and the start of the spring conservation order. What are you going to do to keep yourself fresh? Right. So for us, it's been, we go down to Kansas, right? So if I give it the attention it deserves, maybe we got something here, right? But I don't want to force feed anybody anything. I just want to let people know that I'm out here, that I think that the stuff that we've got is quality, because it was very important to me that it was. And if you're a snow goose hunter, I'd like to think that our stuff's pretty cool.
Yeah.
If you're a waterfowl hunter in general.
Yeah. And that's, I love talking to brands, right? You guys have talked to a couple others, because it's so neat to see like where it started from just an idea to what it is now, and then where it's going in the future.
Right.
I definitely think your brand is, it's got its niche, right? Like it's very, for just a, if you look at it for just a snow goose brand, it's a very tight niche, because it's not all encompassing of the waterfowl, right?
Sure.
It's like my guide service. It is very tight niche of just aoudad. That is my major focus. Now, do I sell axis and black buck and fallow and Sika and whatever else? Of course, but that's my bread and butter.
Right. And so there are hundreds of thousands of guys that snow goose hunt every spring and every fall. Right. I haven't even touched on the market in Canada. Right.
Yeah.
And those guys beat the piss out of them all fall. And then when they get, it's like when they cross the border out of the United States and into Canada, they just become stupid, right? Because those guys are beating the shit out of them religiously up there, and it happens every fall, and then it happens again every spring. And I haven't even delved into that market a little bit. Now, when I get this other product, when I get the prototyping done for that, that's going to be one of my main focuses, because the next batter up, if you will, is the fall season in Canada, starting in late August, early September.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect, man. That's that'll be exciting to get once that product rolls out. I'm really excited to see it whenever it does come out. I'm glad you kind of teased it a little bit on this show, actually.
Well, it's when I say it's been a long and arduous process, I mean that I've been trying to get this thing finished for about 3.5 years now.
Yeah. And that shows that you've thought through the process of getting it from idea to market.
Well, and it also shows that it's hard to find people that are going to be able to understand what's in here and then make it a physical product, right?
Yeah.
I feel like I have finally got it into the right person's hands. Who is the guy? He's a guy that introduced me to duck hunting 35 years ago. And he said, Mike, how come you've spent so long trying to get this done? We're not reinventing the wheel here. This is as simple as it gets. And I'm like, okay, well, then let's get it done. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're on the cusp. I actually watched it do what it was designed to do right before we left to go down hunting a couple of weeks ago. So I know we're right there. It's just, it's days now, not months or years. So it's just about making sure that it's going to be as reliable and dependent as I want it to be. Because the last thing I want to do is release a product to the market and then have it not be reliable and fail.
Yeah.
Because then I'm shutting the doors on this company, and social media will absolutely destroy any hope that I ever have of selling another product.
Yeah. And it's, I talked to a good buddy of mine on here a while back about kind of that same thing, right? It takes one bad review on Facebook, Instagram, whatever, for your outfit or your company, and you then spend the next year trying to get 100 reviews to offset that one negative. And it's unfortunate, yep, but it's the scope of the world that we live in the outdoor industry.
Sure. And it's not so much the one negative review, because I feel like no matter how hard you try, there's going to be at least one person, probably a few people, that aren't super excited about the product that they purchased from you, right?
Right.
It, for me, is how wide is the reach of these people, and how many knuckleheads do they have that are dumping gas on the fire that they just lit, and how fast is that spreading?
Yep.
Right? I look at reviews of things all the time, and if there aren't at least a few negative ones, I start to go, are these legit reviews or what? Right? Because
right,
you're never going to make everybody happy, right? And for me, it's always been about, I hope that people are happy with the product that I have to offer, and I also hope that they understand how much thought was put into developing that product, or coming up with the exact right hoodie for us, right? I spent weeks having my original guy who designed my logo order me hoodies so that I could go in, feel it, try it on, say, nope, that's not the one, let's keep moving. And he would send that one back and order me some more. And there was a lot of time and thought that went into, like, I'm not just going to be somebody who buys a Gildan 6-ounce sweatshirt for $6 on Amazon and puts a $6 screen printed logo on it and sells it for 40. No, these are durable hoodies. They don't pill. Like, they don't get all those little fuzzes on them when you wash them over and over and over and over again. The logo doesn't fade. The sweatshirt doesn't fade. The t-shirt doesn't fade. All of the camo long sleeves are the pattern, and the logo is sublimated right into the fabric, so it's never going to crack or peel or fade on you. Like, there's a lot of thought that goes into, like, hey, I have a hoodie to offer you for $40.
Yeah, and that's something that anybody that wants to start a brand that's listening, that's something you and I have both done. Sure. On that aspect is we've tried different brands, different hoodies, different materials, different things to offer the best quality at the best price. There is, you can step up to some of these more quote unquote premium line hoodies, but they're going to cost you and I to make them. If we order them in bulk, they're going to cost us $20 to order, or $30 or $40 to order per unit.
Right.
And so you have to find that happy medium of quality, effective price, and go with what you feel is the best fit for your brand.
Sure. And because of the way that I'm built, like my long sleeve camo t-shirts, are $35 each, and they cost me $30 to have made. But I can't ask somebody to pay even $38 or $40 for a long sleeve t-shirt because I know that I don't want to do that myself. Right? I'm not doing this to get rich, right? I'm not doing this to replace my real estate career. I'm doing this because I know that I'm not the only person out there who looks at snow goose hunting and says, yeah, I want to do that again today. I want to do that again tomorrow too. Yeah.
It's profit by volume.
And it really is. And that was always the hope, right? And again, when I'm able to give it the attention that it deserves, maybe we'll get there.
Yeah, absolutely, man. What going back into the snow goose thing, how important is that conservation season to landowners, to the ecosystem, the environment that these geese live in?
Well, so the direct answer to your question is insanely important. The long answer to your question is that the conservation order is not doing what it was designed to do.
Okay.
Right? Social media has something to do with that. Because as a guide service, you want to put your best foot forward every time you post on social media. So you want to show that, like, everybody that knows anything about snow goose hunting knows that 100 bird day is your magic number. And it's also the most insanely unrealistic expectation that you could ever have of yourself. And is so rare that when you do it, you have to revel in what you've just accomplished, right? Because on average, 20 birds a day is a very good day, a very good day. And 20% of the people that hunt snow geese are killing 80% of the snow geese that get killed every spring, right? The lead edge adults are, if you want to be humiliated and humbled in the most impressive way possible, go hunt the lead edge of the spring migration for snow geese, because they will humble you in a way that no other animal that I've ever hunted has ever humbled me, with the exception of, like, if you're going to try to target a 6 or 6.5-year-old whitetail buck, right? Those lead edge adults are so smart and so weary and so resistant to doing anything other than what they want to do on any given day that, like, 2 springs ago, we waited for 100,000 birds to leave the field we were setting up in the afternoon so that we could hunt it for the next few days. And we set up after they left, and then they short stopped us by 2 fields for 3 straight days, and we watched them eat out a 150-acre cornfield in 3 days, and then they just moved on. Right? But they just do what they want to do. So because you want to put your best foot forward, a lot of these guide services that hunt in Arkansas, Missouri, Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, both of the Dakotas, and even into Canada, there are a handful of them who say, I'll be on that lead edge and we're going to beat the brakes off of them religiously. And that's why it's going to cost you $600 a day to hunt with us instead of $300 a day to go shoot the juvenile birds that are the bottom third of the migration, because they're not as strong as the adults. They can't fly as far as the adults. They get hungry faster than the adults. And that's where you get outfitters that post, come hunt with us because we're shooting 95 of them a day or whatever the number is per day. Well, they're all juvenile birds, right? And they're not as educated. They're less weary. They're more hungry. They're more tired. They're more apt to come into a decoy spread. And I'll be the first to admit that shooting juvies is as fun as it gets, right? They're not much to look at, but they are super fun when it comes to decoying snow geese. And if you're just getting into it, I would absolutely recommend that you hunt it later in the spring so that you're shooting juvies, right? But that's why the conservation order isn't working. It's because the oldest breeding adults are not the ones that are most often getting targeted in this spring conservation order, because everything is about numbers, because I want to be able to post on social media today that we beat the brakes off of them and look at how cool we are.
Gotcha. So they almost need to reverse engineer their thinking and hunt that leading edge.
You can try.
Yeah.
Yep.
But it's a harder hunt.
It's an insanely difficult hunt, right? We did it 3 years ago going down there. I said to the guys that I hunt with every spring, I said, I want to go down early and hunt the leading edge adults. And they were like, okay. I don't know why, but okay. And we took it in the face for 5 days. It was brutal. Did we kill some birds? Yup. Was it really, really, really hard? Also, yeah. Yeah. They just do whatever the hell they want. We reset the spread 3 times in 3 days that spring, because we would find a feed, wait for them to leave, set up. They would feed in the field right next to us the very next morning. We would pick the spread up, move to that field, then they would go back to the field they were in the day before. And I mean, they just do whatever they want. They don't care. There is no rhyme or reason to it. And you will find them in a field that you would ordinarily look at and go, there's no way that snow goose spun and landed into that field. There's no way. But they are there, and they are all the most beautiful blues that you've ever seen, the whitest adults you have ever seen for snow geese, and they're all just chilling because they're safe.
Yeah, they've got the game figured out to an extent.
They totally do. And that's, I mean, think about if we had to walk around every day looking over our shoulder for 10 months out of 12. And the only time that we knew that we were safe was when we were in our bedroom.
Yeah.
Everywhere else we went, we were looking over our shoulder, waiting on somebody to harm us.
Yeah. It's crazy. I've only ever seen a handful of snow goose spins in my lifetime. Growing up there in Missouri, and then that Arkansas hunt that we were talking about before the show started. And it is absolutely insane to see the crop damage that they can cause.
Sure. And the reason for that is that their beaks are designed much differently than a Canada goose or a speckled belly goose's beak is designed. Mother Nature said, I'm going to design this bird because it is such a voracious feeder. I'm going to design this bird's beak in a manner where it is going to bury that beak in the mud and pull that piece of grass out, or that piece of rice or that seed of corn out, root and all. Where a Canada goose or a speckled belly goose will take a piece of grass and just break it off above ground. A snow goose's beak is designed in a way where they pull that piece of grass out, root and all. And that's where the damage to their breeding grounds in the tundra is thought to be coming from. That plus their fecal matter is so acidic that whatever it sits on, it kills over time.
So they're highly destructive and very detrimental to their ecosystem.
Sure. So when the conservation order started in, some say 97, some say 98, it was very specifically designed to reduce the greater snow goose population in the state of Texas. Right?
Oh.
Yeah. Because farmers were saying to the United States Fish and Wildlife Services, these snow geese are damaging our rice crops so bad that we're not going to plant rice anymore. If we don't do something with them, we're not planting rice anymore. We're going to switch to another crop that they may not be able to damage as extensively as they're doing to our rice flats. So at the time, the population was estimated to be around 700,000 to 1 million that were wintering in Texas. That population was actually significantly greater than that. And in the Central and Mississippi flyways, which is where we're at in Missouri and Michigan and, Kansas, Arkansas, Louisiana, it was estimated at 1 to 3 million, or I'm sorry, 3 to 5 million, when it was actually closer to 5 to 8 million. And as of 2022, 2021, 22, the population is estimated at over 20 million in just the Central and the Mississippi flyways. So their population has quadrupled in the last 25 years that the United States Fish and Wildlife Service has been telling us hunters, just kill as many of them as you can by whatever means necessary. No, you don't need a plug in your gun. You can use magazine extension tubes. You can use electronic game calls. There is no daily bag limit. Please just shoot as many of them as you can, please. And people talk all the time about, how long could the conservation order possibly last if all these people are hunting them and la, 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 la. And they don't ever look at the actual real numbers that are available out there to see that in spite of the conservation order, their numbers have quadrupled, right? So for like 4 of the last 6 years, there have been new record hatches in the spring on their breeding grounds there north of Saskatchewan, right? One of the seasons, 90% of the hatch perished, and it didn't negatively affect their population at all because they had a freak snowstorm up there in April, and all of the hens were on the nests already, and they just left the nests, and 90% of the hatch perished.
And it never diminished that population at all. That is insane.
It was a blip on the radar. The avian influenza outbreak 2 years ago. We were at the refuge down there. It was the day before we left 2 years ago. And as we were driving around, I looked at my kid and I said, there's generally a lot of cripples here, but I've never seen this many. And there were birds with their heads on their backs that were just twitching and swimming in circles. And I said, these can't all be cripples. And we left the very next day to come home. By the time we got home, I had seen a post on Facebook from the refuge that the refuge was closed to all foot traffic and vehicle traffic because they had discovered an outbreak of avian influenza at the refuge. Still, just a blip on the radar.
I couldn't imagine. We had that big freeze in 2019, early 2020 down in Texas that it killed a lot of our exotics on several ranches. I've got a few ranches that I know of that they took 100% loss. When you look at something like the snow goose deal where they had that big freeze in April that year and it killed off 90% of the hatchlings. And then you look at our freeze in Texas where it killed off a good majority, not a majority, but it killed off a good population of our exotics. It's crazy that two different species in a very similar situation, one can thrive in it and the population never see a decline, and the other one, it can damn near wipe everything off the planet.
Sure. And it's numbers, right? I mean, 4 of those 6 years, they were record hatches, and like everybody's sitting around with their hands on their heads going, well, shit, we didn't need that. What are we going to do now? Right? We can shoot 20 white geese a day in Michigan. I don't know anybody that sees white geese in Michigan. You know what I mean? Because once they get inside the Great Lakes, if they ever do, their migration route widens every year because of the pressure that they're under for 10 months a year. Their migration route widens every year. And if they ever find a way into the mitten inside of the Great Lakes, they are absolutely screwed, right? Because you're going to have to fly hundreds of miles across the Great Lake to get to dry land again. Right? So you'll see a couple of them here and there, but they're clearly just lost, right?
I think in my time that I've been back and forth from Texas to Michigan, I think I've only ever seen one. And it was clearly like, oh, you were way lost, buddy.
Yeah. And there are guys on the east side of the state over by the Thumb, the Saginaw Bay area. And there are guys on the west side of the state that shoot them every year. But it's because they zigged when they should have zagged. And when they get inside of the Great Lakes, they figure out, well, shit, we're kind of screwed now. So we're just going to kind of try to do our thing and hope for the best. Right.
Yeah. Hopefully we make it south.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw a post on Facebook 3 years ago, I think, where there was a group from West Michigan shot 9 of the prettiest blue geese you'll ever see in your life. And it was because all 9 of them were flying together and they got inside the Great Lakes or inside of Lake Michigan over there and knew that they were screwed. So they were just flying around the west side of the state doing their thing. And these guys happened to get lucky and find them in a scouting mission one day and then shot all 9 of them the next day.
That's and I can see where having those white geese up here in those numbers would be a problem.
It would be a problem, both for them and for us, right?
Right.
I want it to happen. Selfishly, I want it to happen. I found 4 of them down here local to me 2 years ago and scouted them for about 2 weeks and could never find them in a field. I waited for them to leave where they were roosted, where I discovered they were roosted, and tried following them, lost them real quick, and then never found them again. And just gave up on it after a couple of weeks of driving around for a couple hours a day, trying to find them.
Yeah. It's that snow goose thing, man. It's pretty wild. I love it.
I do too.
It's something that one of these days I will experience a good snow goose hunt.
Well, and as I've told Felicia, like they've got an open invite. I invite people down with us every spring because for me, it's about introducing as many people to it as we can. Every spring, I have people say, yeah, hell yeah, man, count me in. And then 2 days before we leave, they go, shit, man, I can't make it. Right. So it's generally my oldest son and I working our fannies off to try to get all the decoys spread. Takes us about 4 hours to 4.5 hours to set the spread by ourselves. And then it takes us 2 hours to pick it up, get it all back in bags, get it in the trailer, get the blinds taken down, get them in the trailer, So, but it's something I will do for the rest of my days.
Yeah. It's fun when you find a passion for something like that. And it's like, okay, I'm going to take X amount of time off every year. And this is just what it is. And I'm going to go do it. I'm going to go enjoy the grind.
Yep.
I love it, man.
And that's 1,000% what it is. It's an absolute grind because you can do everything right. You can set up in the field that they just left the night previous. And then the next morning they get up and go, you know what? I think I'm just going to go somewhere else today.
Yeah. We see that a lot with crane up there in the Texas Panhandle too.
Oh yeah.
You'll set up in the middle of a field. They'll be there thick and heavy. And it's like, all right, we're going to set that field in the morning. Boom, set that field. And then crane literally just fly right over and go, we're going to dump in over here next door.
We're all done. We're all done here.
Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome, man. If you don't mind, kind of tell our listeners where they can find you on social media. And then also, I like to close every episode out with just one good, solid piece of advice for the listeners.
So you can find us on Instagram. Like I said, I've got a Facebook page, but I don't use that very much. I'm always available via direct message on Instagram. I'm working on the website, so I can't even give you a website yet. But Instagram, Facebook, you can always reach out to me. And I guess the best piece of advice that I could give anybody in terms of snow goose hunting is just stay the course, man. Be patient and understand that 20 birds a day is an amazing day. You're very rarely, if ever, will you experience a day that is 100 birds or even 50 birds. So if you can do it and you can get 10 to 20 a day, pat yourself on the back because that's a good day. Absolutely. It will be the most frustrating hunting that you will ever do, but when they do it right, it will also be one of the coolest things you'll ever see.
I love it, man. I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you taking that time out of your busy day.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity, man. It's been fun.
Absolutely. I hope the listeners grab some education out of this and they learn a little bit as well.
Yeah, have them reach out to me on Instagram. I'm all about sharing my stuff. I'll ship it to whoever wants it, and away we go.
Awesome, brother. I appreciate you.
Thanks.
Absolutely. I'm
See
gonna
ya.
hit the end button and then